Apparently the council have complained about the tunnel of goats because we only have goats in it, we don't have sheep in it, and they say that we are being sheepist. But apparently the fact that you designed the tunnel of goats for goats, not sheep, has been found to be very offensive within the sheep community. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know, my name's John Downs and I'm the ringmaster of this insane circus. Most of the talks, most of the talks this weekend get introduced by Richard, doing strange things with a glove puppet. But as Richard and I are doing the introductory talk, it's not really a talk, it's sort of two-way chit-chatty thing. It would be a bit silly for Richard and me to introduce ourselves. So, why are we all here? I'm not talking existential here. I mean, why are we here this weekend?
Camp in the rain.
To camp in the rain. Thank you very much, my dear.
And to visit the tunnel of goats.
To visit the tunnel of goats. I know that's the real reason. By the way, this is the young man who got stuck in the tunnel of goats. He seems to have been extricated. Now, we are here largely to talk about cryptozoology. And that's why Richard and I, for a few minutes at the beginning of the Saturday each year, pose the question, what is cryptozoology? Jojo, what's cryptozoology? Jojo, you did my amanuensis all weekend and you don't know. Greg, what's cryptozoology?
Eat away.
I'm just about to. But I've got to try and embarrass you first. Who can we else ask? Henry, what's cryptozoology?
Cryptozoology.
Yeah, what is it?
I have no idea. Ask him.
You're rubbish. You're all rubbish.
I'm only 10.
You're the expert.
Yes, you're only 10. So you can be excused for being rubbish.
Woohoo!
Rosie, what's cryptozoology?
It's several things. It's trying to...
Aha, there's two Rosies! Aha! Rosie in the front, wave. Now up in the air so everyone can see you. That's Rosie giggling in the front and that's the other Rosie back there. Jojo, have we got a microphone? The Rosie back there can have. That's unless Rosie in the front wants to say anything. Do you, Rosie in the front? That was, for those of you who couldn't see, a small giggle and shaking her head.
Wish I hadn't said anything now. Well, it's several things. Cryptozoology is trying to search and prove about creatures which are unknown to science. It is species of animals that might be living outside of their normal habitat. It can also be if you write this down somewhere, now I'm on the spot, I can't think of it. Yes, animals that are presumed extinct as well, and trying to prove that they still exist, for example.
I think that's a pretty good definition, don't you, Richard?
There we go.
Cryptozoology, two fat drunks with beards.
That too, yeah.
Cryptozoology is broadly the study of animals that are unknown to science or that are erroneously thought to be extinct, or known animals that have grown beyond their natural dimensions, or what the textbooks will tell you is their natural dimensions. A few examples. Animals completely unknown to science could include something like the Mongolian death worm, which is a sausage-shaped burrowing creature that has been reported from the Gobi Desert. It's supposed to range from 2 to 5 feet long, be about as thick as your arm, reddish-brown colour, and looking very like a large salami. There's a lot of nonsense written about it, that it can generate blasts of electricity and spit a corrosive yellow saliva that acts like acid. In fact, when you go and talk to the nomads that have seen it, the electricity is, or throwing lightning as they call it, is completely folkloric. And most of the witnesses who've seen it report an animal about 2 feet long, sausage-shaped, lying in a desert. It's something unidentified. We don't know what it is. We could hazard a guess that it's probably some sort of a worm lizard or a sandboa, but it's unknown to science. Another possible unknown to science would be the Yeti, a large, upright walking, dark furred, not white furred. The Yeti does not have white fur, it has black or dark brown fur. Creature reported from Asia, from northern India, up through the Himalayas and into Tibet. There's a possibility that it could be a species of gigantic ape known from a fossil record called Gigantopithecus blacki, but it's only known from its jaws and teeth. But the Yeti appears to be some form of huge ape. Whatever it is, it's unknown to science. Then you have the things that are erroneously thought to be extinct, the most famous and the most exciting, to my mind, being the thylacine, or Tasmanian wolf, which is our actual logo. Sometimes called the Tasmanian tiger. Of course, it's neither a wolf nor a tiger. It's a flesh-eating marsupial. It was about, in terms of weight and bulk, it was about the size of a placental wolf, but somewhat shorter in the leg. It was found across New Guinea, Australia, and Tasmania. It was supposed to have died out in prehistoric times on New Guinea, about 2,000 years ago in Australia, but it hung on in Tasmania, the island of Tasmania, until the 1930s. It was poisoned, shot and snared because it was thought to be a menace to sheep, and the sheep farmers put a bounty on it. And it was supposedly hunted into extinction in the 1930s, the last one dying in Hobart Zoo. But since then there have been over 4,000 sightings of this animal on Tasmania, Australia and in New Guinea, including one very close-up sighting by a zoologist called Hans Narding. So it's often called the healthiest extinct animal you will ever meet. And that's one of the creatures that is listed as extinct, but probably isn't. Another one, the great ivory-billed woodpecker, which is supposed to have disappeared around about the time of the Second World War. It was found throughout Cuba and Central America and up into the southern states. And a few years ago, there were reports of these things in the swamplands of Arkansas. And it looks like the great ivory-billed woodpecker has also survived. And then the third category is creatures that we know about that are around today but have just grown very, very large. The most famous being the giant anaconda, a large aquatic constricting snake from South America. And we know that it can approach 30 feet long, but there have been sightings of giant anaconda over 60 feet long. Now, anacondas live in water, they don't lay eggs like most other snakes. The female retains the eggs inside, and they hatch out inside her and she gives birth to live young. So they've severed their last link with land. They can live in the water, buoyed up, and possibly reach fantastic sizes. We know from the fossil record that Titanoboa grew to 50 feet long, and there are reports today from the depths of the Amazon of green anaconda getting even larger. So broadly, those are the three categories of cryptid.
Those are the three main categories. But there are other creatures. There are creatures that are known to science, found in the wrong place, at the wrong time. One of my favourite books is The Lost World by Conan Doyle, and yesterday, my friend, one of the speakers here today, Judge Smith, who is somewhere, there he is. You weren't wearing your hat, Judge, I couldn't see you. You were hiding behind Lizzie there, I couldn't see you. But he brought me a copy of the complete Professor Challenger stories that has not just The Lost World, but has all the other stories written about the same characters. And one of my favourite bits of The Lost World is right in the end of the last chapter, when they've come back from South America, they're in the Royal Albert Hall. He opens. Was it the British Museum? I can't remember. Albert Hall, wasn't it? Yeah. And he opens a crate and says, I have proof that we saw surviving prehistoric reptiles. Opens the case, and out flies a pterodactyl. I would love to do that. That is a piece of theatre that I've been wanting to do all my life. Unfortunately, it's fairly unlikely. But thanks to Carl Marshall, who is one of the newer and very valuable members of the CFZ, and Carl, you wave to him once I want to see who he is. By the way, I'm wearing my proper glasses today, so I can actually see you all. For those of you who weren't here last night, I was wearing my reading glasses, and everything further than about 3 feet away was just an amorphous blur, which is pretty good for being a 14, but a bit confusing when you're trying to see who's asking questions at the back. I don't know if any of you have read a book by me called The Small and Mystery Carnivores of the West Country. I wrote it and published it in 1996, and it looks at the less well-known mystery carnivores of battery's gone, David. Okay, it looks at the less well-known mystery carnivores of the West Country. Everybody knows about the stories about the big cats. We've talked about them here, and no doubt we'll talk about them here again. Most people know about the folklore of the big black dogs, the satanic hunting pack. Fewer people know that there are smaller carnivores that are equally 14 and, within my definition of the word, cryptozoological in nature. For example, the two rarest carnivores in Britain are the polecat and the pine mountain. They were once found, and 3 in fact, the Scottish wildcat, and all 3 species were once found in every county of the British Isles, and according to accepted wisdom were all hunted to extinction in England by the end of the 19th century. I wrote a book 15 years ago in which I went through modern sightings of both polecats and pine martins in the West Country and hypothesized that not only were they not extinct, but they were actually doing reasonably well in a cryptic sort of way. I was so proud of this book. I published it, I waved my arms in the air, told everyone about it, and all the people from the scientific establishment I contacted all told me I was an idiot and I was making it up. Last year, or the year before, English Nature announced that they had found healthy colonies of pine martins in, I think, 8 different British counties. Okay, none of them were the ones I said that they were there, but at least it's a step in the right direction. And the other thing I hypothesized in my book was that there was a second species of marten in Britain. Now, up until 1869, there was. All the way across Europe, there are 2 species of marten. There's Martes martes, the pine marten, and Martes foina, the beech marten, the stone marten. And they are found across much of Europe together in the same places. They just fill a different ecological niche. In Britain, if you read any of the books on British mammals written before the 1870s, it said that there were 2 types of marten. And that in the West Country, the beech marten was actually the more common, the marten cat. And if you look at the medieval parish registers, where the church wardens would pay money for vermin, they paid less for the tail of a beech marten or a marten cat than they would have done for the tail of a pine marten, which implies that they were the more common of the 2. However, in 1869 and 1870, a guy called Edward Alston, is the battery game on this? A guy called Edward Alston wrote a paper called On the Specific Identity of the British Marten, in which he said that there was no such thing as a British stone marten cat. The only marten ever to live in Britain was a pine marten. I looked at the available evidence, mostly the archival evidence, which I've very, very briefly traced into now, and I believe he was wrong. I think there were both species of marten, even if there still aren't today, but I believe that there were both species of marten in Britain within historical times. Now, the other day, Carl Marshall, who I've already got to wave at you all, was at car boot sale. Where was it? Where was it? He was in Warwickshire at a car boot sale, and he found this. According to the bloke he bought it from, it was from Dorset, and it's late 19th century. It's definitely a marten. At the moment, is Lars in here? No, Lars is probably out there trying to find beer or something. But Lars Thomas from Copenhagen, who does most of our DNA analysis, has taken a lot of hairs. He's trying through both morphological analysis and DNA analysis to find out what it is. I have a sneaky suspicion that in the real sense of the word, is a cryptid. We do have two species, we do, or at least did have two species of mountain in Britain. This is the first time that this thing has been seen in public, unless you count the Cowboy Cell and Stratford as public. This is the stuff that keeps me happy. This is the stuff that keeps me going. I was going to say keeps me sane, but I haven't been sane for years. But this is what keeps me going. The fact that at the beginning of the 21st century, we know very, very, very little about the reality of the natural world. We're an arrogant enough species to think because we've sent satellites all above the surface of the Earth and taken photographs from a couple of miles up that we know what's there. We don't. We don't even know what's in our own back gardens. We don't even know what's in our own countryside. Lars Thomas put out some bucket traps the other night to try and catch some beetles in my garden. And he found a species of beetle I had no idea lived in my own garden. That is why I do this. The Chinese philosopher, something like 2,000 years ago, said the more we see, the less we know. And as the older I get, I think that is a very real truism. I'm glad you guys have all come to the Weird Weekend, because it's not just about cryptozoology. There are a lot of lectures here which are of interest to cryptozoologists and are sort of what they might call allied disciplines, or other things which people whose main interest is cryptozoology will find entertaining, absorbing, or amusing. And one of the most important things is that we bring a club comedian from some obscure town somewhere. Where's he from, Richard?
Cleethorpes.
We have a Cleethorpes club comedian. Richard's just going to go out and get him. And he has a performing cryptid. So before we go into our first talk, which is my old friend Nick Waddle, and I'm very fond of Nick, even if he does come to my garden